troubling, and maybe you can set me straight. No one I know is more committed to a lot of emphasis on the meritocracy of ideas than you are. And no president or administration seems less committed to the processes around rationality and debate and emergence of truth and all of that than the current one. And yet it's very hard so no one seems further than what you so passionately stand for, and yet it seems so hard to get you to say anything that is skeptical or critical about. That's what I'm finding. That's what I'm finding hard to follow.
And let me just be clear about this so that you feel this very, very well. You running Harvard as president of Harvard, and the notion of being in that particular position and having conversations with people who will say, I think you did a lousy job of that.
There were many.
You failed in this way and that way and so on. First of all, I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes as being president of Harvard. I can imagine, but I'm a humble man who knows how difficult it is to find a confident opinion about the markets and other things. So I don't know what it is really like to be in your shoes. And then me to engage in that conversation and make an ignorant judgment out of that, I'd rather be in the category that I don't know. But I would say, yes, let's go up on the stage, Larry, and let's have a conversation. And let's work that through. Now, if you don't want to go up on the stage and do that, I think it was one of the great tragedies that you didn't do that, okay? I think that you should have stood up on the stage and said for Harvard, here I am, ask me the questions, and probe me and have a debate so that you can find out what's true and what it's like. That is so much more productive along those lines. I think there are so many ignorant judgments about what it is like to be in somebody's shoes, and I think that's a dangerous thing. So I'm hesitant to form opinions about such things. Yes, from a different point of view, it's not the idea meritocratic way that I'm operating, okay? But I would say in terms of that thing, you also fell short in terms of operating in that, standing up in front of it and being idea meritocratic. That's what I would think would be the best path.
Okay, I'm gonna resist the temptation to defend myself on that one and ask you a different question. After which there are 4 microphones, and so people want to ask questions should go to the microphones. So Ray, there probably are a fair number of economics professors in the room, or finance professors in the room, or economics and finance students whose mother or whose great aunt or whose cousin or whose something observed that there was a lot of turmoil in the market in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and who called them up and said, there's all this turmoil in the market, it seems really scary, what should I do? What answer should they have? I mean, obviously it depends on the precise circumstances of their great aunt, but as a general matter, what advice should people have given to someone who said, you're a professor of economics and finance, you're supposed to kind of know about this stuff, kind of what's going on, and what should I do with respect to the fairly dramatic events in markets of the last few weeks?
Okay, I'm going to answer the question at 2 levels. One is just a very quick, superficial thing, and then one is sort of explaining a little bit what's going on. On the first one is you cannot possibly succeed that way. If you're going to get scared, aunt, whatever your name, or grandma, whatever your name is, and the stock market falls X%, and then you're going to get scared, you got to do the opposite, okay? It's when you're not scared, you probably want to sell, and when you're scared, you probably want to buy. But anyway, the best thing is don't play the game, okay? Because it's pros against you. The best thing you could do is know how to have a balanced portfolio, and I could explain how to have a balanced portfolio because you ain't going to win that game. The greatest mistake of the individual investor is to think that that market that did well is a good market rather than a more expensive market. And that market that did badly is a worse market. And I don't want any part of it rather than a cheaper market. And you can't make that distinction. So please don't call me then. Just don't do that. Would be my first advice for her.
Can I just say, none of you paid anything for that advice, but based on my knowledge of these things, that was very valuable advice, that if you can discipline yourself and your relatives to follow over the next substantial number of years, will be worth a lot of money to you. Okay, having said that, I now, on behalf of everyone in the room, will pledge not to do any goofy punting around in markets on the basis of the analysis you give us of what's going on, what's going on in the last several weeks. So we won't act on it. So you can feel free to give us your best analysis.
Okay, yeah. So I did a 30-minute video called How the Economic Machine Works, and it just describes in a nutshell a template for that. But I just want to give it a real quick nutshell because there's a template and then things viewed within their context. Over a long period of time, we raise our living standards through productivity, which really comes from learning how to do things better so the outcome per capita rises. That determines our economy. Around that, we have two cycles, basically. Most importantly, we have two main cycles. We have a short-term debt cycle, which is also called a business cycle. Recessions, expansions, and so on. And then we have a longer-term debt cycle that I won't get into right in a minute. Okay, so to explain the short-term economic cycle where we are, it's like when you're at a recession and you stimulate through monetary and fiscal policy. It's like a car driving at 70 miles an hour picks up, but the capacity to produce grows at a slower rate. So think of it as like a car in front of you that's driving at 50 miles an hour, but your car is going at 70 miles an hour. And as you come closer to its constraints, that 50 miles an hour, you're now going at 70 and having to come to 50, you have to do it. You have to put the brakes on. Okay, and that becomes that part of the cycle. When you're late in the cycle, so in other words, when the economy is sort of booming and growing at a faster rate when there's a limited amount of capacity. What's happened is, for various reasons, there has been a lot of stimulation hitting the gas as we are in that part of the particular cycle. And markets go up and down more because of interest rate changes. Because as I told you before, what happens is an investment is a lump sum payment for a future cash flow. And the discount rate, the interest rate that we use to calculate the present value of that, affects all asset prices. So when you're in a position where you're late in a cycle, and you're having the stimulation that's happening in that stimulation. And then there's the increased risk of that discount rate rising. In other words, interest rates going up, which happened. Then that affects all asset prices. And so all asset prices then react to that. And that's basically what happened. What we have is a lot of cash on the sidelines still, because central banks have bought $15 trillion worth of financial assets on their balance sheets. And so we have a lot of liquidity there. Companies have a lot of liquidity. You fall into one of two categories now. You either have a lot of access to money and you have a lot of money, or you can borrow a lot of money. It's very, very easy. Or you don't. There is this vast majority of the population, unfortunately, that doesn't have access to any of that. That's the majority of the people. But in any case, when we're talking about the markets, there's a lot of liquidity, and you're going to get cash on top of cash. Companies can borrow cash, they've got cash, the cash is coming from in, and so on, so they buy that. And so we're at that part of the cycle where we're having both that discount rate and then also all that cash around that can then go buy it. So what you see is, you see the market sell off because the interest rate changes. Then you see people with a lot of cash, companies buy back their stocks, Companies merge, individuals got cash, they go in there, and that's what we're seeing.
Okay. I am going to get myself reprimanded afterwards by the organizers of the forum for finding you so interesting that I've asked questions for longer than I should have. But there is still some time for questions from the floor. We've got the ground rules that people who are asking questions should introduce themselves, that questions are short, and that questions end with a question mark.
This is on. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Ned Schell. I'm a joint degree student at the Business School and Kennedy School. Recognizing the merits of this idea of meritocracy, I see how it works really well in kind of a organization where everyone's really bought into it, and this kind of dovetails off of the conversation we're having a moment ago. I want to talk